Good morning. Always nice to see you as you join us on 3+U if you watch the show on a regular basis. You know, it's kind of a smorgasbord as you watch the hour. A little bit of everything tends to appear, but we're going to kick off this morning with kind of a philosophical conversation that's going to get you feeling better. Lauren Smith is already laughing. Dr. Lauren Smith is here along with Dr. Brian Stutz. They are with REV Optimal Living, and they sat down and said, you know, the sky's the limit on what we can talk about this morning, but let's kind of get into the philosophy really behind how REV Optimal Living embraces each and every day there, because while you're chiropractors by training, you're not chiropractors. Is that a fair way to say it?
Yeah, people who are under care forget that we're chiropractors as well. So
okay,
it's a
so
common thing.
I'm going to set us up a little bit, Lauren, and then Brian, you jump in at any point. So I was saying to you in all candor that one thing that's been difficult for me over the years with chiropractic care is that it can feel like you go in and you get adjusted and you go back to your life, and then in a few weeks the same problem flares up. How is it fixing it? And you were quick to nod your head because that was your very issue too.
That was my journey in chiropractic school, right? So we learn bones out of alignment, we put it back as the chiropractor, body functions better because what the spine is housing, right? The nervous system, all these peripheral nerves telling our body what to do. I loved that so much. And what would happen next is bone goes out again, and then we put it back, and this whole back and forth thing. And so when I'm in school, I'm like, there has to be something deeper here. It's not just the individual bone that's out of alignment. And so really what I discovered was, you know, it's the bones, it's the muscles, the fascia, the ligaments, the tissues, the cells. You break all these systems down into the atoms, subatomic particles, into the energy. Energy is something that we all know exists. You know, you walk into a room and you can immediately sense on, oh, there's really good vibes in here, or like, ooh, bad vibes. That's how we interact with our world, and it's through our nervous system that perceives those energy experiences.
So Brian, you were saying that for a lot of people, maybe all of us, I don't know, we kind of have an area of our body where stress tends to gravitate, which could be also the repetitive nature of the problem.
Yeah, and it's different for everybody. I mean, some people are going to carry, you hear the term, I carry my stress in my shoulders, or I get low back pain or headaches when I'm stressed out. And that's just kind of that physical area where our body tends to store that stress, but that can go as deep as, like Lauren is saying, deep into the organs, deep into the fascia, the muscular systems of our body, that we just tend to store different experiences, whether it's stress, trauma, challenges, or hardships, that's just stored in that area of our body. And then as a result, those organs or those muscles or those joints that are connected to that part of our nervous system, those are going to feel the effects. And what so many people try to do is they try to work backwards through that, and they try to fix those organs, or they try to work back into their body, never really addressing the root cause, which is that their energy system is off, and that flow of that innate intelligence that's within all of us isn't flowing 100% within our body.
Okay, I might step into a great big pit here, but here I go. You said they're not addressing the root cause. The last few years, we've seen a real national push towards addressing the root cause of things, with your mental health being front and center. But a side effect of that can be that all of a sudden you begin to identify everything in your life as a problem, when sometimes it's just life. And that's kind of what y'all were alluding to, that just life creates its own kind of havoc on your body, so just fix it. It's not a big deal.
So, you know, we talk about stress a lot, and people think stress is bad, and it's not that stress is bad, but our inability to adapt to those stressors makes stress bad, right? So the things that are happening externally in our life, it's really all dependent on our perception system. It's how we perceive the experience. You know, you hear about stories that everyone goes through a similar experience, but they perceive it in a different way based on where their nervous system is at. So if you have years of built up stress that has building up in your nervous system that you're not processing, life isn't going to look too great, right? Your perception of the world isn't going to be great, because it's going to be all fear, all anxiety, whatever you've been feeding your body, whatever you're not processing in your body, that's what you're going to see, and that builds up. So it's hard to like even make the conscious choice mentally, because your body is holding on to that as well.
Right.
And it can be a cycle that you get into.
So when people come to you, it might be a little bit of a different experience, because you, first of all, you walk in. We were there just recently, if you saw that interview, and it's like this Zen-like atmosphere, just wonderful when you walk in the door. But the intake, as you call it, is pretty involved, and you're there for well over an hour, right?
Yeah, about an hour.
Yeah, typically about an hour for that first visit, and then each visit after is just that 15 minutes or so that we put people on a table and take them through our neural integration process. And so we try to get people in and out pretty quick. Some people can do a longer session if they need, but really it's all about that time that we can get people in this neural integration process. The more time you can spend on the table going through this process, the more your nervous system's going to unwind those patterns and
So in part of that hour-long intake is you're doing your physical assessment, sure, but there's also the psychological people. You're learning about them,
yeah,
right?
and it's important to know their story, because when we get to check in with them, in a month or 2 months, 3 months, we get to hear the changes. Not only, my neck pain's gone, but I feel more present in my life. I feel like I have a better relationship with my family. I just had someone come in the other day she's a grandma, and she could not spend time with her grandkids for more than an hour because she was just so overwhelmed and couldn't handle it. And she came in and she's like, I spent the whole weekend with my grandkids.
Wow.
All of them. And it was the best time ever. Whereas before, that would have been way too much for them, right? But they're in a place now where it's like, that's why it's important to know not just what's going on physically, but what's going on in your life, how we can support you in all areas of your life.
And I think that's why we see so many people. I mean, like we were saying, we see people for maybe a month or maybe a couple months, but then we see people for several years. And I think that's the reason why. They just see the changes that it has, not only in their physical health, but throughout their entire life. And they just want to see how far they can take this.
I'm glad that you mentioned that, because I was going to kind of head that way, because you are downtown and we have people who watch from Ottawa and Cleveland and North Georgia, and it would be an effort for them to come to you, and they might be thinking, well, I'm not sure I can maintain that on a regular basis, but that's not really the case. The care can be what you want it to be.
Yeah,
right?
and we actually see people from Knoxville, Nashville, Atlanta, people who come into town who maybe their family member sees us and they're like, just go see them. And so when they are in town, we can do longer sessions in a short period of time and kind of curate it to whatever your needs are.
So before I let you run and show people how they can get in touch with you, do you need to have a physical hurt to come to you, or what if you're just feeling a lot of strain?
That's mostly who we see, I would say.
Really?
Yeah, recently the intake forms we've been getting, people are talking about how my nervous system just feels fried, or I feel overwhelmed, or this anxiety won't go away. We definitely do see physical ailments and things like that, but mostly it's just like people can feel the stress accumulating.
Yeah, and I think sometimes people, if they take a break from coming to see us and then they come back, they realize that they weren't quite themselves, and they just felt that difference, and so they jumped back in. They didn't necessarily have like neck pain or back pain that brought them back in, but they just wanted to feel more like themselves again.
Have you ever gone into some place and you just kind of wish you could stay there for a while because the people just seem so happy? When we went to see their store recently, we were leaving and walking to our car, the three of us from the station, and every single one of us kept saying, they're just so cool. It's a family atmosphere there. You have your own space, but you're not isolated away from people, and you just feel like the people who are helping you totally believe in what they do. So thank you both so much.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks for having
you.
us.
You can find them at REV Optimal Living. RevOptimalLiving.com is the website, pretty simple. 713-7390 is the phone number for right now. They're on Fraser Avenue, but they're in the process of having a fun move, so they'll be back and tell us about that in the months to come. Thank you both.
Thanks,
Thank
Julie.
We help people with their Social Security benefits every day.
Just listen to this story.
I was a home health care nurse for 23 years before